Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're gonna be a craftier person after watching this video. The Christmas potluck. I used to work in accounting as support staff at one of the largest law firms in the country. Not the best, just one of the largest. Despite our size, there was not a lot of support staff perks, not even a Christmas party. In fact, one year for Employee Appreciation Day, we were given mouse pads with the company logo on them, despite the fact we all had optical mice. It was a large and miserly firm, and joy was low in supply. Sometimes though, there were potlucks. One Christmas, I walked by the big conference room on the main floor that everyone passes at least twice a day. It was one of those rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows that you see right through, and in it was a potluck. Specifically, a Christmas potluck filled with homemade foods. I saw many fellow accounting support staff in there, loading plates and entered it to check out, enamoured by the large Christmas ham front and centre on the table. I grabbed a plate and started to grab a few things, and as I started for the ham, the accounts payable supervisor stopped me. "Did you bring anything to the potluck?" "I didn't even know there was going to be one. Did you see the ham?" She frowned. "This potluck is for those who contributed only." Driven by intense ham lust, I reached into my pocket, pulled out the only thing in there, a vanilla lip balm, and put it on the table. "There, contribution. Ham is salty, people will need this." I proceeded to the ham. She tried again, now angry that I was not leaving in shame. "This is a secret potluck, only certain people were invited." She admitted it. I found out later that there was an email circulated only to certain members of the support staff from various departments, with other certain members omitted. I pointed to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "You have a Christmas ham in a glass birdcage near one of the highest trafficked areas. How secret can it be?" And then I got the ham. It was already tasty, but now it had been seasoned by malicious compliance. The next year, because I was not the only one to discover the super secret potluck without an invitation, the super secret potluck was held in an inner suite with no windows in one of the lower floors with a low traffic area. Or so I hear, I never got the email. Isn't that like workplace bullying, or what's the word? Like when you're intentionally leaving someone out of an event? It's a crappy thing to do anyway, but the fact that the manager was like, "Well, you're not invited," is so high school. And apparently, OP got a new job shortly after the place burned down. 2 times the malicious compliance stops all work. In my last position, I was an IT contractor for the government. One of our roles was administration of the security suite. One of the ways this worked was through policies. For example, we would get a policy to block all Adobe Flash in our enterprise, update the security suite with this policy, and now all Flash-based software is disabled. Our government lead would direct what policies to push to all workstations, and we would have to follow without question. Most of the time, the policies would come from recent security threats, updates from the manufacturer, or seemingly just intuition. Again, since we were all contractors, we would have to follow the instructions from the government, no matter how absurd it may seem. In 2 particular instances, this caused a major stoppage of work for all of our in-house and remote staff. The first incident that came through was a policy to block all temp files. We knew this would cause a myriad of problems, but we had to push the policy anyways. You see, all applications publish temp files for various uses. If you go into your computer files and do a wildcard search for .tmp, you'll likely see thousands of temp files. Our organisation was primarily composed of developers who discovered that all of the applications that they worked on could no longer function correctly. Amazingly, it took 2 days for the government lead to tell us to rescind that policy. I can't imagine how many lost work hours that cost. The second incident was a much more egregious error that had to be based on intuition. We got a policy to block all exe files, executable files. We knew immediately that this would cause major issues. Now, it's common knowledge to never run an exe file that you download from the internet unless you know what it is and can check the validity. But to not allow exe files in an enterprise? Well, let's just say that you can no longer execute anything on a computer. Word, Outlook, Firefox, etc. That's right. Every single user was locked out of every application that could possibly run. We started getting calls within minutes of nothing working. Word was sent up to the government lead of the likely cause of this snafu. This time, it took 2 hours to rescind the policy. I mean, if you're just an employee working from home on nothing major, that's 2 lovely paid hours of break time. At least that's how I see it. Just do my job? Great, we will do exactly that. Okay, so a while back I was working as half the IT team for a plant owned by a large company that deals in fried legumes, among other things. Me and my buddy managed the network, services, and did maintenance for 100 or so laptops in the plant and associated sites in the city. Not too stressful most of the time. Then there was Gina. Most of the time, dealing with the users are good. Gina was one of the glowing exceptions. One day, Gina made what we call an oopsie. In a moment of clumsy, her powered on and working laptop fell 1 meter and then stopped working. Which is fine, it happens. What was not fine was her bad attitude when she came over to the IT office. As other IT guys might have already guessed, her hard drive was ruined. Upon inspection, the rest of the machine was fine, it was just the hard drive. Gina was not pleased. You see, Gina had some very important files and emails on her computer that she absolutely needed to work. Company policy says you have to have a cloud backup that we provide, but users have to upload their own files. Of course, Gina neglected this and was holding both of us responsible for her inability to do her job. An opinion which she expressed in increasingly rude language. "Don't come up with excuses, just do your job," was her exact phrase as she turned to leave. And boy, did we do our job to the letter. You see, if it's super urgent and the user simply needs a functioning computer to work, we can take a functioning hard drive from a dead laptop, saving us the usual 2 weeks it takes for replacement parts to be delivered. Also, the use of file recovery software on malfunctioning hard drives is not authorized, but we will attempt it if the files are critical enough. But we were doing our jobs to the letter, so none of that either. In the end, a repair job that would have been completed in a day actually took 17 days as soon as the replacement hard drive arrived. And because our backup laptops were already loaned out, she had nowhere to work and had to manage. As a result, she fell behind on a lot of work. Also, she never did get her files back. He is allowed to defend himself? TLDR at the end. Years and years ago, when my oldest son was about 4, we had him in a pretty good daycare centre about a block or 2 from where we both worked. After a while though, we started getting incident reports, usually with one other boy biting my son. We complained after the second event, and we were assured it wouldn't happen again, but of course it did. Now, we really liked the daycare teachers and caregivers, it was just the administrator who wasn't very good. She wanted to avoid confrontations, she tried to calm us down, she didn't want to confront the other parents. Basically, she did nothing and hoped things would go away. Finally, in one meeting after yet another biting incident report, I asked why the biter didn't get suspended or kicked out. Well, he hadn't hit my son. So if he hit my son, he'd be out. But not for biting? No, that's what the rules say. It was something stupid about how infants crawling around occasionally gnaw on another and they didn't know better, so they made a one-size-fits-all rule. The director suggested that my son really should defend himself. I'm sure she was thinking of pushing the biter away, or staying away from him, or calling a teacher, something very passive, which is what she always advocated. Okay, let me make sure of this. If my son defends himself, he won't get in trouble? Nope. Alright, I can work with those rules. Wicked grin, and my wife got a little worried. My son and I had a little project out behind the garage for quite a few evenings. The next time the biter got my son, the fruit of my loins laid him out. Really laid him out, just like I taught him. So we got summoned from work to a meeting at the daycare with the director and the other kids' parents. They were rather furious, so I waved the stack of incident reports of their young whelp biting my son. But my son hit theirs, hitting was a suspension offence. With a grin, I repeated what the director had told me, that he was allowed to defend himself. He did so, just a bit aggressively. She nodded that I was right, cringing at having her own words used to defend what my son had done. The other kid was kicked out. The director wasn't happy with me, but as I told her, I knew I was going to have to take my kid out behind the house and teach him to defend himself. I didn't think it would be before kindergarten though. I asked her if she'd had rather my son defended himself or that I'd have called Child Protective Services and she would have probably lost her job. She really didn't like me and was glad when we left. Quick edit. In response to one comment, it was actually less that he was kicked out than the parents were persuaded that it was in everyone's best interest if they went elsewhere. Bad choice of phrasing on my part. Okay, so that's all for r/MaliciousCompliance. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!